Well, back to work again. Now, you are to some extent familiar with what semiotic analysis is, what you mean by the signifier and the signified, how, say, in a camera movement, if it is a close up uh, of your face, that face, the close up, is a signifier, but it signifies something. The meaning of it is that there is a little bit of an intimate shot, or there is an element of intimacy in that close-up shot. So I have explained these points earlier, that this semiotic analysis is something which is important in analyzing media texts. Now, before I proceed further with the other elements of analysis, it's not necessary that when you are presently doing your research, you will be applying these various methods of qualitative format of analysis. You will, for the time being, you will kind of apply a very simple, straightforward analytic method of what you understand from the questions or the answers that you get from your friends and relatives. It could be described as a simple narrative analysis, or a simple textual analysis. But then some of you might be interested in going into further depths, and I would expect that you, when you will be doing your final full-fledged research in the next semester, you will be taking up an analytic mode, which can be semiotic, which can be psychoanalytic, it can be a Marxist. The different the types of analytic which I'm talking about, or it can be a sociological. So all these are methods which I need to familiarize you, so that you can understand this to some extent. I just will put it in outline, but you have the book before you, Berger's book before you. Read those chapters, and you will be able to understand how to do these analytic methods. But these methods are, methods which are adopted by the researchers. You need to be familiar. It's not that this list is exhaustive. There are many other methods, in fact, very conflictingly and very confusingly various methods of analysis, but I would like to simplify. Sometimes I feel that I'm oversimplifying things, but for the time being, let us stick to a simple method rather than getting into the complicated one. I'm not telling you that the psychological method or the Marxist method or the sociological method are simple. They are quite complex. But let us try to understand the different types. So let us get into the Marxian analysis. I told you there is an approach. I talked about the historians. The Marxian historians like Irfan Habib, or maybe in the Western it is Raymond Williams, Eagleton, Terry Eagleton. These are all Marxian historians, international historians, and Indian historians. Romila Thapa. These are all Marxist historians. They adopt a kind of approach which looks, or which cares for the underdog, or for the common people, not the kings or the rulers or the people in authority. While doing a Marxian analysis, you need to keep in mind that the idea of Marx and Engels, his friend, of the idea of the base and the superstructure. Base being the economic base of society. I mean, the production, how people produce a product, maybe agriculture, or maybe a manufactured goods, and the benefits out of that product. Who gets it? I mean, that is the main controversy. the superstructure, it is what are the values, what values are added to this profit, or this after sale of this particular product. Who gets the profit? And that's how the superstructure or the values are created. So these are ideas which have to clarify slowly, bit by bit. I mean, the idea of base and superstructure, the economic analysis of the society or the world. This was started by Marx himself. Then there are other theoretical ideas which have come which have been introduced through Marxian literature or Marxian thought process, like ideas of class conflict, the rich and the poor. We have in India, we have all these the caste system, which is an addition to the rich and poor. There can be a rich Brahmin and a very poor or a poor Brahmin, or sometimes a very rich Vaisya. That is one classification of rich and poor. And also in India, we have the special classification of the caste system. So that is the class conflict is another idea which is Marxian. Then we have an idea of alienation. Alienation comes repeatedly. It starts with the Marxian analysis. Alienation can be from the society, can be from individuals cut off from the rest of the world. This alienation idea, we will come in different other methodologies also. But these ideas, these words, you need to be familiar with. The base and the superstructure, class conflict, alienation. Then the consumer society. Again, consumer society will again come when you will be dealing with the sociological analysis. But consumer society is something which was introduced by the Marxian analysts. Then again, the idea of hegemony. The hegemony is a word very common with the Marxian historians and Marxian analysts. They introduce this word to show that there are rulers. They like, for example, the word cartel. They are powerful, so they create an hegemony, and they are the rulers. So that hegemony is sometimes they say the hegemony has to be broken, otherwise the common man will not improve. The situation of the common man will not improve. So these are ideas, Marxian ideas, which you can improve or you can introduce while you are analyzing your research material. That could be one of the Marxian approach. So we'll come back to it when we get more time, but just familiarize yourself with these terms, Marxian terms of consumer society, class conflicts, and then the alienation, and hegemony. These are contexts, Marxian context. The second idea is the psychological, analysis. Here, psychological, there are two major figures in here. One is Sigmund Freud, and the other is Carl Jung, Jung. Freud is Freud. Freud is a German. Carl Jung is an American. But then here they again introduce some ideas which are now become very common in our analysis, in our social and your media analysis and everything. So let us try to understand a few words like introduced by Freud. For example, the unconscious. They think in terms of whatever action has been done on the surface by a person, by a human being. It is done because of its unconscious urge. Coming from inside. It's an instinctive, and that's why they go and analyze the instincts of human beings. And for Freud, the instinct is basically based on sexual urges. Everything, to some extent, sometimes it appears to be a little bit of an exaggeration, but according to Freudian analysis, all action or all motivation is driven by our sexual urges. That was his way of analyzing human motivation or human behavior. So that is something which was one way, and which has also become which has become very common. Even if you don't agree with him fully, there are reasons to believe that there are certain things which human beings do because of these hidden urges in the human mind. Then there are ideas of dreams. In fact, human beings dream because of these, the internal instinctive or things which they desire. Also, these ideas of dreams, then ideas of myths and symbol. These are all, ways of analyzing the psychological nature. So when you are, if you want to analyze your text through a psychological method, these are the concepts which has to be clarified. We have to understand and make use of, say, Freudian concepts. Or you can take up Jung. Jung, of course, is a follower of Freud, but he takes it to a little more, extends it, that idea. He's not. He understands it. It is sexual urges, but then more than that, he says that he's the unconscious. He says that it is a collective unconscious. He describes it as a collective unconscious, which is to some extent. He explains that it comes from the upbringing, which means that there can be a social impact in its formation of the instincts. So there's a beginning of for Freud, it was just simple instinct which was sexual. Here for Jung, there is an upbringing, the question of upbringing, where it is a collective unconscious, where the unconscious of Freud becomes a collective unconscious, where the impact of society becomes important to some extent. So these are ideas which have to be understood in analyzing psychologically. They have introduced words like stereotypes, then archetypes, then psyche. These are words which are very common in psychological analysis. These are words you need to be familiar with if you are taking up psychological analysis. And finally, let us come to the sociological analysis part, where again, to some extent, we have seen that Marxian analysis merges with, to some extent, the sociological analysis one. But sociology, again, is a thing which was introduced by a French philosopher, a sociologist called Durkheim. Durkheim is Durkheim, Durkheim. And he introduced the social nature of man. The society, as I said, that from the instinctive level of Freud, we had Jung to introduce a little bit of the idea of upbringing, and now it is the sociologist who brings in the society informing human character, or it is in the society becomes more important than the individual. So here, the sociologist is a different, different concept or a different form of analysis. Again, you have the idea of individual, and then the idea of society. Society is as important or sometimes more important than the individual itself. Here again, we have the ideas of alienation. Here you have the idea of class. Here again, the elite class and the lower level, or the poor, the have-nots. Those are class distinctions are also introduced in the sociological analysis. You have the idea of culture, high culture and low culture, a popular culture. So all these are ideas which come in the sociological analysis. Now, this was the original sociological analysis, but later we have dealt elsewhere ideas of postmodernism. Here again, we have a great break from the conventional ideas of class and culture, where they break the popular hierarchy, and it is a freedom to do anything you want. I mean, all the demarcations are broken. So postmodernism is also a part of a sociological analysis. So that also becomes part of research. You need to understand. And here there are methods in which you, when you analyze, analyze media, you introduce the idea of gratification, ideas of genre, ideas of content analysis. All these are a part of sociological analysis. We will find time to come to them, to talk about them in more greater detail, but these ideas you need to be familiar with. Social gratification is something which is the entertainment value which we have, and that needs to be understood in the social context. Why, whether it is moving towards consumerism. Again, the idea of consumerism comes from the Marxian ideas. So here the divisions seem to blur between the Marxian ideas and then later the sociological ideas. The sociologists had one way of looking at the consumer society. The Marxians have a different way of looking at consumer society. It was more, Marxian idea was more hostile to the elite class. Here, sociological analysis are more accepting the differences of the hierarchy. Here, the Marxian idea, here you have the hierarchy, the class, where there is an open call for destroying or breaking these hierarchies. Whereas in the sociologists, it is just being kind of let it be what it is. You just try to analyze objectively what the society is like. And later, as you saw in previous classes of postmodernism, where all these ideas have been broken into bits and pieces, and everything and anything is acceptable for your expression, and the idea of originality has been destroyed. But the idea of money, consumerism, is very much there, even in postmodernism. That is something which we need to analyze further in greater detail. So let us stop here, but we will come back again on these ideas, because these ideas are not that simple as you think, because once you try to understand these ideas in greater detail, you will be sometimes maybe confused of what will be your way of, or what will be your own approach. But then you need not be afraid for the present time. You just know what the differences are. When you will write, do a straightforward research of analysis on your own way, and these will be necessary when you do a more broad-based or more detailed research project next semester maybe. Thank you.